Chapter 10, The Silver Cape. Kino Amark. Only a fool would wear a silver cape over black trousers and a shirt. This was ridiculous, especially since my power was a sham, but this was what Professor Levin instructed me to wear. My classmates started arriving, but Mayo was still nowhere to be found. On the school grounds, the two carriages that would take us to the palace were already parked near the school gates, ready to leave in a few minutes. One was reserved for the students, while the other would carry our companions in case our parents or any elders wanted to join the journey to the Canellan Palace. The other wealthy students need not ride the carriages. Instead, they will be going straight to the palace riding their own family's horse-drawn carriages. When there were still dragons, the most affluent families could afford to fly on dragons in ancient times. Too bad dragons are extinct now. I counted about 20 heads waiting for the call to ride the carriages. Mayo had yet to arrive still. It was odd because he usually came in early if there were school events like this. He loved festivities, and he often talked about them for days. Before and after the event, mind you. I heard half the class laughing, and I turned to see who they were laughing at. An even fatter Mayo was walking towards me. He was smiling at everyone even though they were teasing him, and why would he not? He decided to dress up like a watermelon. Only his head showed on top of his costume. His hands stuck out to his sides. He was perfectly round. I grinned at him. "Nice costume," I said. "The Emperor will not have a hard time guessing my power once he sees my costume." He eyed what I was wearing and said, "Look at you, all dashing in your cape." I pushed him without meaning to knock him over. "Shut up," I said. I looked down and saw a familiar set of footsteps beside Mayo. My eyes may have widened because Mayo turned around too and tried to see what it was that I was peering at. He nudged me in the ribs and asked, "Is it Piper?" "Piper?" I said to the nothingness in front of us. "It's me," she said in a hushed tone. "You have to sneak me inside the carriage." "Don't worry, I have it all figured out," Mayo said. I looked at him, and he was not kidding. He pushed a button on his belt where a watermelon's waist was supposed to be, and the costume cracked open. It swung, and sure enough, there was a hollow space beside his body. There were extra holes at the bottom for Piper's legs too. "You see this space?" he asked. "This is where you will scoot. Come on in now." "I've thought this over," he said proudly. If I could see Piper's face, I would have guessed that my smile was mirrored on her face. "This is brilliant, Mayo," I said. "Even if the other children bump against Piper, they will think it's your bulging self." "Hey, easy on the words, bulging is a bit harsh," he said sourly. I laughed. "Sorry," I said guiltily. "I'm so happy to see you, not see you, Piper." She laughed softly. "It's so nice to see both of you." She paused. "Now, remember. Focus on the box. It's the one thing that you should move with Distantekis, but if ever you wish to try other stuff, move other things around, make sure they are within my reach, and that I can lift them. Otherwise, we'll have a hard time convincing the Emperor," she warned. "Nothing to worry about," I said, my voice faltering. "Are you afraid?" Piper asked. I felt myself blushing. I was grateful when I did not have to answer Piper because Mayo was already shouting his heart out. "Down with the bullies!" he shrieked. Piper probably saw right through me because she held my hand and gave it a squeeze. Mayo shouted again. "Say goodbye to your sorry bully asses." We laughed as we entered the carriage. The three of us sat at the farthest corner so as not to attract any attention. All around us, my classmates seemed excited. The sounds of happy chattering filled the carriage. Randall was dressed in long black robes and was wearing eyeglasses. Perhaps he was going for a scholarly look. His costume was perfect for his power, reading books even if the covers were closed. I bet he could cheat during exams. What a neat, useful ability. In front of me, I caught sight of Nicola, and I smiled at her. She looked as jubilant as the rest of us. She was wearing a simple dress, and she had on a straw hat. Beside her, there was a hoe. Brilliant, I thought. She was probably posing as a farmer because of her power to grow seeds. The others were dressed extravagantly and in very lively colors. Some of my classmates were wearing only their trousers, with their torsos bearing nothing but tattoos. Everybody was positively glowing. The energy was so contagious that I found myself grinning even though I had protested about having to wear a cape to the festival. A silver one at that. For the first time since I entered schooling, this was the only time that I felt I belonged. Soon the carriage started moving, and Mayo pushed at me a bit. The lurch of the carriage sent me pressing against Piper's invisible body. "Wait up," someone shouted from the school ground. We looked outside the window to see who it was. It was Professor Levin. Not without me. He grinned and winked at all of us as soon as he was inside the carriage. "He's very handsome," Piper whispered. "What?" Mayo and I asked in unison. Piper only giggled. It must have been loud because Nicola, our classmate who was sitting right across us, stared at us, her eyebrows raised as though she was wondering who between Mayo and me giggled like a girl. Mayo glanced at me at the same time that I turned to look at him, and in my horror, we both faked a giggle at the exact same time. Nicola looked away, probably thinking what a bunch of losers Mayo and I were. To me, however, it was hilarious, and Mayo and I laughed loudly. This time, when Piper giggled, it was drowned by our laughter. "Onward to the palace!" Professor Levin yelled. And then the entire class broke into a song.